Okay, this is going to be an introduction to SAW 4.1. In SAW 4.1, you're going to be looking at people and what they think, events that have happened, and different ideas and how those things interact. You might see questions that ask you things like, based on this passage, what do you think the author would think about blank? And you're going to have to practice making inferences into what other people think or what has happened at events, things that were not written down. Because remember, inferencing is kind of like reading in between the lines. You do have to use evidence from the text to make your guess, but it is you reading in between the lines. It also is testing you on key terms and tone. So for key terms, it's just looking for you to understand important vocabulary. And for tone, it's just saying, do you understand the author's like tone of voice? So we're going to talk a little bit more about tone. Um, the tone is how the writer shows their attitude toward a subject. So if I said the definition of tone, that's me being cheerful, right? My tone is cheerful. If I say the definition of tone, that's angry. My tone is going to come across angry. Tone is a lot easier to spot in person when we have inflections in our voice than it is in writing, but you can understand tone through writing as well. So here's an example of tone. If a father said, "We're going on vacation," and the son said, "That's great," his response would be really cheerful. If he said, "We're going on vacation," the son said, "That's great," his tone would be sarcastic. So you're describing the way in which somebody is either writing about something or saying about it. They're telling you what their attitude towards something is. Okay. Oh, I gotta go out of Nearpod and pull up this video. Okay. I'm not in Nearpod, so it wouldn't show me. We're gonna watch this short video, and it's gonna explain mood and tone a little bit more clearly.
That's not a real word. Don't use that tone of voice with me. Dear Tim and Moby, how do I figure out what the tone is in a story? I don't get it. Signed, Tom. Tone is something that helps convey the emotion you should feel when you read or hear a passage. In general, tone reflects how the narrator or author feels about his topic. Often, it means the same as talking about the tone of someone's voice. Someone can sound angry, frustrated, or exhausted, or happy, or excited. There are tons of tones. In a piece of writing, however, an author conveys these emotions through his words and writing style. For example, you can usually sense a piece's tone by examining the narrator's vocabulary and syntax, the way we put sentences together. Well, let's look at this passage. My eyes were red with rage, and I couldn't keep my feelings in any longer. I slammed my fist down on the table and demanded he give my money back, or else. Thanks. Anyway, we can definitely tell that the tone here is angry. Words like rage, slammed, and demanded tell us how the narrator's feeling. It's important to remember that you can say the same thing in different tones. Just one word can be said in hundreds of ways, each expressing a different tone. Here's an example. Thanks, I mumbled sarcastically, rolling my eyes at him. Thanks, I shrieked, and ran to give him a great big hug. In each case, the writer sets a different tone. In the first example, the tone is, well, sarcastic, like the author describes. What do you think about the second one, Moby? Right. The diction, or style of speaking, and the exclamation points tell us that the tone is enthusiastic or excited. Well, mood is a little different. It's the general atmosphere of a piece of writing and the overall feeling the reader gets from the piece. A mood might be romantic, mysterious, dark, lighthearted. It could be almost anything. The writer creates the mood not only by establishing characters and plot, but by describing the setting. Setting is the physical surrounding in a story or article, where and when it takes place, and what kind of things are in the background. In fact, the setting often reflects the mood without our even realizing it. Let's read this passage. It was cold, rainy, and dark, like always. She sat by herself in an unlit room, counting the raindrops on the window. Yeah, the mood is pretty gloomy. The gloomy surroundings mirror the gloominess of the story. The narrator isn't telling us that in words, like he's not saying it was gloomy, but we get an overall feeling of gloominess when we read the passage. Even though they're often similar, a story's mood can be very different from the tone. Something may have a very serious tone and a silly or comical mood. Okay, let's read this passage. Maria was ready for what she was sure would be the greatest night of her life. Tears leapt to her eyes as she thought of the lonely night she'd spent praying that this moment would finally arrive. With quivering hands, she lifted her pet rabbit, Buster, out of its cage. It twitched its nose inquisitively, but otherwise kept still. It was finally happening. Maria was going to fulfill her dream. She was going to the prom with a bunny on her head. The narrator uses a very somber tone, which makes it seem like Maria is taking herself and her plans very seriously. But the mood is silly and absurd, and she's going to the prom with a bunny on her head. Ah, triple word score. Let's play again when you're in a more pleasant mood. I'm Dr. Jeff Finnick.
Okay, we're going to look at three passages now, and you're going to think about what is the tone. So you're trying to decide what is the author's attitude toward their subject or toward what their subject is doing. Then I also want you to be thinking what words are making you pick up on that tone. This is from the book A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Pip's hands hovered over the keyboard as she strained to listen to the commotion downstairs. A crash, heavy footsteps, skidding claws, and unrestrained boyish giggles. Josh, why is the dog wearing my shirt? Pip's dad shouted, the sound floating up the stairs. Pip snort laughed as she clicked to save her capstone project and closed her laptop. It was never quiet once her dad returned home from work. Okay, so go ahead and tell me what do you think the tone is, and then tell me what words tipped you off. So I think that the tone of this is pretty like silly or happy. Um, that pen is harder to write with. And some of the things that tell me that the author thinks it's funny is like unrestrained boyish giggles. I think the sound floating upstairs sounds really like nice, and then her snort laughing. Um, so I think all of those things kind of contribute to this. The tone of this being kind of fun and just really light. Okay, next one. This one is about uh, this is from an informative article about kids who invent things. What do earmuffs, swim fins, and popsicles have in common? They were invented by curious, creative kids, some as young as you. Inventor and founder Ben Franklin was just age 11 or 12 when he designed paddles to help swim faster. He used oval he used oval pieces of wood and cut holes for his thumbs. His 300-year-old invention is why Kid Inventors Day is celebrated each year on January 17th, his birthday. Kids are creative thinkers with their own ideas for tackling problems. Going through the invention process, identifying a challenge, and designing a solution and testing it to see if it works is empowering, says Tim Pula, an invention/innovation specialist at the Smithsonian Institute. So go ahead, tell me what is the tone of this passage and what words tip you off to what the tone is. I feel like the tone of this one is hopeful or maybe inspired. I feel like the author is really conveying that their mood is they are very excited by all these inventions that kids have. So, why I think that is he's calling inventors curious and creative. He's saying kids are creative thinkers. They're tackling problems. It's empowering. So I think all of those things really show that he's inspired by kids. Okay, last one. And I'm not going to tell you the answer on this one, so try and figure it out yourself. This is about an article about a doctor treating patients with type 1 diabetes. I'm a doctor treating many patients with diabetes. I could never have imagined back when I first started taking insulin that one day I would have so many patients who could not afford the medication because of skyrocketing prices. When the drug was discovered in 1921, the original patent, the legal rights to the idea for a formula or drug, was sold to the University of Toronto for $1. The purpose of the sale was that so no one could patent it and secure a profitable monopoly. A recent paper in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that insulin nearly tripled in cost from 2002 to 2013. A lawsuit filed in January accuses insulin companies of price collusion. The lawsuit alleges that the companies raised their prices repeatedly and together to match their competitors. Prices have gotten so bad that the American Diabetes Association recently launched an online petition at makeinsulinaffordable.org. More than 248,000 people have signed it. Before you guys do your tone, I do want to show you it has one of our key terms here. So notice that a patent is a key term to understanding this, and a patent is the legal rights to the idea or formula for a drug. So that is a key term that you could be quizzed on in a SAW. But go ahead and answer the question, what is the tone of this passage and what words tipped you off so that you knew? All right. So just remember, tone is not an action, it's the attitude that the author is portraying. Go ahead and work on SAW 4.1. You're being tested on people, events, ideas, and how they interact, as well as key terms and tone.